The station alarms had been ringing for 17 minutes when Aaron Blake realized the people hunting him were standing in the wrong hallway. The lights on Deck 12 flickered overhead, bathing the narrow corridor in pulses of amber and shadow. Cold condensation dripped steadily from exposed ventilation pipes, striking the metal floor with soft rhythmic taps that echoed through the abandoned mining level. Far below, somewhere deep inside Vanta 9, machinery groaned like a living thing struggling to breathe. Aaron stood alone at the dead end of the corridor, his back against a sealed maintenance hatch covered in decades of dust. His gray utility jacket was stained with grease. A portable diagnostic scanner hung loosely from one hand. He looked less like a criminal and more like a tired repairman who had simply taken a wrong turn. 6 armored figures blocked the only exit. Their black and silver combat armor reflected the flashing emergency lights. Each carried an energy carbine held with practiced precision. At their center stood Commander Lysara Vane. She was taller than the others, her silver-white hair gathered behind her neck, golden eyes fixed on the human with cool certainty. "Aaron Blake," she said, her voice calm and sharp inside the confined corridor, "you are accused of unauthorized access, destruction of station infrastructure, and interference with Imperial safety systems. Step away from the hatch." Aaron did not move. He looked past the weapons, past the soldiers. His eyes settled on a ventilation grill mounted above their heads. Another drop of water struck the shoulder plate of the nearest guard. Tap, tap, tap. Lysara noticed his distraction. "Are you ignoring me?" she asked. Aaron finally looked at her. His expression remained strangely relaxed for a man surrounded by armed guards. "How long have your people been stationed aboard Vanta?" he asked quietly. Several guards exchanged confused glances. Lysara frowned. "Answer the accusation." Aaron nodded slowly. "Less than 3 weeks, then." One of the younger guards stepped forward impatiently. "Human, you do not ask questions." Aaron ignored her. He looked back toward the vent. "You should have rotated filter cartridges after your first week." The corridor fell silent. Lysara narrowed her eyes. "Explain." Aaron raised his scanner. Numbers glowed red across the display. "Your armor systems are compensating for atmospheric contamination." Barely. Another drop of condensation struck the floor. This time, everyone heard it. Tap. Deck 12 air recyclers are failing, Aaron continued. The moisture should not be orange. One guard instinctively touched the droplet resting on her gauntlet. Under the emergency lights, the liquid carried a faint rust-colored tint. Lysara remained unmoved. A convenient story from a saboteur. Aaron sighed softly. "Commander, if I had sabotaged the station, I would not still be here trying to fix it." Before Lysara could answer, the entire deck shuddered violently. The lights went dark. Absolute darkness swallowed the corridor for 2 terrifying seconds. Then emergency illumination activated, bathing everything in deep crimson. A mechanical voice echoed through the station. "Warning. Atmospheric instability detected. Sector 12 entering containment lockdown." Heavy blast doors slammed shut throughout the deck with thunderous force. Behind Aaron, the maintenance hatch sealed permanently. Behind the guards, an enormous security barrier descended, cutting off retreat. For the first time since arriving, Commander Lysara Vane looked uncertain. Aaron stared at the crimson lights overhead and quietly closed his eyes. "That happened sooner than I expected," he whispered. Commander Lysara Vane recovered first. Training had shaped every instinct she possessed, and instinct demanded control. "Status report," she ordered immediately. Her guards activated wrist displays. Crimson emergency light reflected across anxious faces hidden beneath transparent visors. "External communications unavailable," one guard reported. "Security network offline." Another looked up from her scanner. "Atmospheric composition changing. Trace contaminants increasing." Aaron Blake pushed himself away from the sealed maintenance hatch and walked calmly toward the nearest wall terminal. 6 weapons instantly followed him. He stopped without protest. "You really should lower those," he said quietly. "If this deck loses pressure, puncturing a coolant line will make things worse." Lysara stepped in front of him. "You predicted the lockdown." "No," Aaron corrected gently. "I predicted system failure. The lockdown was just the station trying not to die." The commander studied him. Every report described Aaron Blake as a disruptive maintenance contractor who had bypassed restricted systems and disabled safety protocols throughout Vanna 9. Yet nothing about the human matched the file. He was not afraid. He was not angry. Mostly, he looked exhausted. Another alarm echoed through the corridor. Warning, the mechanical station voice announced. Atmospheric filtration efficiency reduced to 62%. One of the younger guards shifted uneasily. Commander, 62% is below operational standards. Lasara ignored her. Human, what did you do to this station? Aaron looked genuinely confused. Me? He pointed upward toward the dripping ventilation pipes. Commander, those lines have been leaking for weeks. I have submitted 17 repair requests. He pulled a small data pad from his jacket pocket and tossed it gently across the corridor. Lasara caught it instinctively. The screen displayed maintenance reports. Dates stretched back nearly 2 months. Every request carried the same response. Denied. Budget restrictions. Impossible, Lasara whispered. Imperial safety regulations require immediate review. Aaron gave a humorless smile. Welcome to frontier mining operations. Before Lasara could respond, one of her guards suddenly leaned against the wall. Her breathing had become noticeably heavier. Commander, she said quietly, my respirator efficiency is dropping. Aaron immediately looked toward her. How long has she been coughing? The guard froze. Lasara's expression changed. 3 days, another admitted reluctantly. Aaron nodded once. Then the contamination reached your barracks before lockdown. He walked toward the struggling guard. Weapons rose again. Aaron stopped. Commander, in about 20 minutes she will develop dizziness. After that, confusion. He looked directly into Lasara's golden eyes. You can arrest me afterward if you want. Right now, she needs fresh filtration media. The struggling guard tried to straighten. Commander, I am operational. Aaron shook his head. No, you are disciplined. There is a difference. Silence filled the corridor. Somewhere deep inside Vanta 9, another heavy shudder rolled through the deck. Dust drifted from ceiling panels. The station voice returned. Warning, atmospheric filtration efficiency reduced to 58%. Lasara looked from the failing system's display to the human standing calmly before her. Everything in her training warned against trusting him. Yet the numbers on her wrist display matched his predictions exactly. Finally, she lowered her weapon. You have 10 minutes, she said. Aaron exhaled softly. Commander, if we want everyone on this deck alive, we are going to need considerably more than 10 minutes. Aaron Blake moved immediately. The moment Commander Lasara lowered her weapon, he crossed the corridor and knelt beside the struggling guard. Her nameplate read Sergeant Nyrith Soul. Condensation covered the inside of her helmet visor. Her breathing had become shallow. Aaron removed a compact diagnostic probe from his utility belt and held it near the ventilation intake on her armor. The device emitted a soft warning tone almost instantly. Filter saturation, Aaron said quietly. Your respirator is trying to compensate for ferric silicate contamination. It cannot keep up. Lasara stepped closer. Can you stabilize her? Aaron nodded. Temporarily. He looked toward the other guards. I need 1 atmospheric cartridge from each of you. None of them moved. Training again. Procedure again. They looked toward their commander. Lasara hesitated only a moment. Do it. The guards removed emergency cartridges from their armor packs and handed them over. Aaron sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor and began dismantling them with practiced speed. His fingers moved confidently through valves, seals, and filtration membranes. You have done this before, Lasara observed. Aaron did not look up. 3 mining colonies. 2 refinery accidents. Frontier stations break more often than governments admit. He connected the components with insulated wire pulled from his scanner case. People stop caring about regulations when breathing becomes difficult. Another violent tremor shook Deck 12. Overhead, a shower of rust-colored droplets fell from the ventilation pipes. This time, even Lasara noticed the metallic smell. The station voice echoed again. Warning, atmospheric filtration efficiency reduced to 51%. Civilian habitat sectors may be affected. Aaron froze. Civilian sectors? He stood immediately. What habitat sectors are connected to this deck? One guard checked her wrist display. Residential Ring C. Approximately 1,200 station workers. Aaron's expression changed for the first time since the confrontation began. Concern replaced exhaustion. Then we are already behind schedule. Lasara narrowed her eyes. Schedule? Aaron inserted the improvised filter assembly into Sergeant Nairatha's respirator. Within seconds, the guard's breathing steadied. Color slowly returned to her features. She looked at Aaron with open surprise. "Thank you," she whispered. Aaron merely nodded and walked toward the sealed security barrier blocking the corridor exit. "Commander, how much authority do you have aboard Vanna 9? Lasara seemed confused by the question. "Complete tactical authority." "Good." Aaron pointed toward the barrier. "Because we need that door open." "Impossible," Lasara replied. "Containment protocols prohibit override during atmospheric emergencies." Aaron looked directly at her. "Exactly." He walked to a nearby maintenance panel and removed its cover. Exposed wiring glowed beneath crimson emergency lights. "The station locked us down because central systems detected contamination. But if residential Ring C is connected to this filtration network, 1,200 people are breathing the same air right now." Silence filled the corridor. Even the guards understood the implication. Lasara stepped beside him. "You knew this was happening." Aaron's hands paused over the wiring. "That is why I accessed restricted systems." He finally met her gaze. "I have been trying to warn someone for 11 days. Another alarm sounded. Then something new appeared on every wrist display simultaneously. Residential Ring C. Air quality critical. For the first time since arriving on Vanta 9, Commander Lasara Vane realized the human they had cornered might have been the only person on the station trying to save it. Commander Lasara Vane stared at the warning on her wrist display for several long seconds. Residential Ring C. Air quality critical. The words seemed impossible. Imperial safety doctrine required immediate evacuation procedures long before conditions reached critical levels. Yet the alarm was real. Around her, the other guards exchanged uneasy looks. Sergeant Nairath's soul had fully recovered, but she remained seated against the corridor wall, watching the human with growing confusion. Aaron Blake was already working. He knelt beside the exposed maintenance panel, stripping insulation from damaged wiring with a multi-tool worn smooth from years of use. Crimson emergency lights painted his face in deep shadows. "Commander," he said without looking up, "how many civilians live in Ring C under the age of 12? Lasara frowned. "I do not know." Aaron stopped working for the first time. He looked at her quietly. "You should." The words carried no accusation. Somehow that made them heavier. Before Lasara could respond, the entire deck trembled again. This time the lights flickered violently. Somewhere beyond the sealed security barrier, metal screamed against metal. The station voice returned immediately. "Warning. Primary atmospheric processors offline. Secondary systems operating at 43% capacity." Aaron muttered softly under his breath. "That is worse than yesterday." Lasara heard him. "Yesterday?" Aaron nodded. "The contamination started 11 days ago. I traced it to old extraction tunnels beneath the station." He reconnected 2 power conduits. Sparks briefly illuminated the corridor. "The mining company ignored my reports." One of the younger guards stepped closer. "Why would they ignore contamination reports?" Aaron looked tired. "Because shutting down Vanta 9 would cost millions of credits every day." Silence followed. Even the guards found no answer to that. A soft chime sounded from Aaron's scanner. He stood immediately. "Good. We have partial access." The massive security barrier blocking the corridor rose 6 inches before grinding to a stop. Aaron sighed. Enough. He dropped to the floor without hesitation and crawled beneath the narrow opening. On the opposite side, he disappeared into darkness. Every guard instantly raised her weapon. "Commander," Sergeant Nairath warned, "he is escaping." Lasara looked at the half-open barrier. Then she remembered the human remaining beside a group of armed strangers when he could have fled hours earlier. "No," she said quietly. "He is not." 30 seconds later, Aaron returned carrying a dust-covered emergency filtration unit almost as large as himself. He dragged it beneath the barrier with visible effort. "Help me," he said simply. Without waiting for permission, 2 guards stepped forward. Together, human and soldiers wrestled the heavy machine into the center of the corridor. Aaron opened the housing panel. Inside, every filter membrane had turned dark orange. "There it is," he whispered. Lasara knelt beside him. "Can it be repaired?" Aaron studied the ruined components. "Temporarily." He looked toward the crimson lights overhead. "Long enough to reach residential Ring C." Lasara looked sharply toward him. "You intend to go there?" Aaron nodded as though the answer were obvious. There are 1,200 people breathing poisoned air. The commander stared at the quiet human. Hours earlier, her team had cornered him, believing him dangerous. Now he was preparing to walk directly into the most contaminated section of the station for people who had never even met him. For the first time, Commander Lasara Vane began to wonder whether humanity's greatest strength was not courage. It was refusal. Humans simply refused to leave people behind. The journey to Residential Ring C took 43 minutes. Under normal conditions, the route required less than 10. Nothing aboard Vanta 9 resembled normal anymore. Commander Lasara Vane led the way through maintenance corridors illuminated only by intermittent crimson emergency lights. Her guards moved in disciplined formation around Aaron Blake, although no one pointed weapons at him now. The human pushed the salvaged filtration unit on a battered cargo cart, its wheels rattling loudly across the metal decking. Every few minutes, he stopped to examine wall terminals or listen to the sounds moving through the station itself. "What are you listening for?" Sergeant Nyrith finally asked. Aaron pressed one hand against the corridor wall. "Airflow." He listened another moment. "And pumps." Nyrith looked confused. Aaron offered a faint smile. "Stations talk if you know how to hear them." Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast transit junction connecting multiple residential sectors. The sight stopped everyone. Hundreds of civilians filled the chamber. Families sat on luggage. Children slept beneath emergency blankets. Elderly miners leaned against support columns while exhausted parents attempted to reassure frightened sons and daughters. The air carried a metallic smell strong enough that even Lasara noticed it through her armor systems. A station administrator hurried toward them the moment he saw Aaron. "Mr. Blake," the older man exclaimed, relief visible across his face. "Thank God." Lasara immediately noticed something strange. Nobody looked surprised to see the human. Several civilians actually waved. A little girl ran forward and wrapped her arms around Aaron's leg. "You came back," she said softly. Aaron knelt beside her. "I said I would, Emma." The child nodded seriously, as though this settled everything. Lasara watched in silence. This was not the station saboteur described in official reports. This was someone the residents trusted. Aaron stood and surveyed the crowded junction. "How many?" The administrator looked down. "Nearly 2,000 now." Ringby evacuated itself after the alarm started. Aaron closed his eyes briefly. The filtration unit needs to go online immediately. Without hesitation, he began organizing people. Miners helped position the salvaged equipment. Teenagers carried spare power cables. Parents distributed emergency masks. Even Lasara's guards joined the effort. Within minutes, the transit hub transformed from a frightened crowd into an organized community working together. Aaron moved constantly, adjusting valves, calibrating airflow, checking children for respiratory distress. He never stopped. Twice Lasara offered him water. Twice he forgot to drink it. Hours passed. Slowly, the air quality monitors improved. 40%, 52, 61. Hope returned alongside breathable air. Then a young guard approached Lasara carrying a recovered data core taken from the damaged maintenance network. "Commander," she said quietly, "you need to see this." Lasara accessed the files. Her expression changed immediately. Internal communications, executive authorizations, deleted maintenance reports. Aaron's warnings had not been ignored. They had been suppressed. Repeatedly. One final message carried direct corporate authorization. Maintain current operations. Evacuation not approved. Detain contractor Aaron Blake, if necessary. Lasara stared at the screen. 11 days. The human had not endangered Vanta 9. He had spent 11 days trying to save it while others buried the truth. Across the transit junction, Aaron adjusted an oxygen manifold beside a sleeping child. He looked utterly exhausted. Lasara suddenly understood something unsettling. The most dangerous person on Vanta 9 had never been the quiet human everyone cornered. It had been whoever wanted him silenced. Commander Lasara Vane did not sleep that night. While exhausted civilians rested beneath dim emergency lighting inside the transit junction, she sat alone in an abandoned operations office reviewing the recovered files again and again. The evidence never changed. Maintenance reports had been erased. Atmospheric warnings had been downgraded. Aaron Blake had been flagged as a security threat less than 2 hours after submitting his first evacuation request. The final authorization carried the digital seal of Vanta, 9 Executive Director Harlan Voss. Lasara stared at the signature for a long time. Outside the office, children slept wrapped in thermal blankets while volunteers distributed hot drinks. The contrast felt unbearable. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Sergeant Nyrith entered quietly. "Commander, long-range communications are partially restored." Lasara stood immediately. "Open a secure channel to Station Command." The response arrived within minutes. Director Voss appeared on the screen from an immaculate executive suite untouched by emergency conditions. He looked irritated rather than concerned. "Commander Vane," he said sharply, "your mission parameters remain unchanged. Detain Aaron Blake immediately and prepare him for transfer." Lasara remained silent. Voss continued. "The contractor has compromised station stability and spread panic among civilian populations." Lasara activated the recovered maintenance files beside his image. "The records indicate otherwise." For the first time, Voss hesitated. "Only briefly. Those reports are incomplete." "They were deleted," Lasara replied. Repeatedly. Voss's expression hardened. "Commander, your responsibility is security, not corporate administration." Lasara looked through the office window toward the crowded transit junction below. Aaron moved among sleeping families, checking air monitors for perhaps the 20th time that night. No one had asked him to continue. He simply had. "Security exists to protect people," she said quietly. "Exactly," Voss answered. "Which is why Blake must be removed before further unrest develops." Lasara ended the transmission without another word. Hours later, alarms echoed once more through Vanta 9. Aaron looked up immediately from a filtration console. "That is not atmospheric," he said. "What is it?" Sergeant Nyrith asked. Aaron's face grew pale. "Primary extraction shafts." He rushed toward a nearby terminal. The display confirmed his fear. Deep beneath the station, abandoned mining tunnels had finally collapsed, releasing an enormous concentration of untreated contaminants directly toward residential Ring C. Estimated arrival time, 90 minutes. Panic threatened to spread through the junction. Aaron climbed onto a supply crate and raised his voice. "Everyone listen carefully. We still have time." The crowd slowly quieted. "The evacuation trams can carry everyone if we organize by family groups." His calm steadied them. Miners formed loading teams. Parents gathered children. Elderly residents received priority seating without argument. Lasara watched the transformation with astonishment. No formal chain of command existed here. No military discipline. Yet thousands of frightened civilians moved with remarkable order because one tired human asked them to trust each other. Lasara stepped beside Aaron. "How many people can we move before contamination arrives?" Aaron studied the transit schedules. "If every tram operates continuously, everyone." He paused. "Assuming Central Command unlocks departure clearance." Silence settled between them. Both already knew the answer. Executive Command would never authorize a full evacuation. Not now. Not with liability investigations inevitable. Lasara slowly removed the command insignia from her armor. "Then Central Command no longer concerns us," she said. Aaron looked at her in surprise. For the first time since they met, Commander Lasara Vane smiled. "Tell me where you need my guards." The evacuation began 78 minutes before contamination reached residential Ring C. It began without authorization, without executive approval, and without a single official order from Station Command. It began because ordinary people decided waiting was no longer acceptable. Under crimson emergency lights, the transit junction transformed into controlled motion. Families lined up beside designated tram platforms. Volunteers carried medical supplies. Miners guided elderly residents toward priority boarding lanes. Children held glow sticks distributed by Sergeant Nyrith to prevent anyone from becoming separated in the crowd. Aaron Blake stood beside the central transit console, rerouting power manually from abandoned industrial sectors. Sweat and grease covered his face. He had not rested in nearly 30 hours. Commander Lasara Vane moved through the junction with her guards, no longer as enforcers, but as protectors. One by one, each member of her squad removed the insignia of corporate security authority from their armor. Nobody spoke about it. The gesture required no explanation. "Platform 4 ready," Sergeant Nyrith reported. "Medical evacuees boarding now." Aaron nodded. "Good." Send the next tram directly to Habitat Ring A. We can shelter everyone there temporarily. A young technician hurried toward them carrying a portable terminal. Fear filled his expression. Mr. Blake, Commander, Central Command just locked the transit network. Silence fell. Every departure screen throughout the junction suddenly turned red. Access denied. Executive authorization required. Around them, worried voices began spreading through the crowd. Aaron stared at the screens for only 2 seconds. Then he looked toward Lasara. How good are your people with maintenance access panels? Lasara almost smiled. Embarrassingly terrible. Aaron handed her a toolkit. You are about to improve. 20 minutes later, 6 highly trained alien guards were lying beneath tram platforms surrounded by wiring, while Aaron calmly talked them through bypass procedures. Blue conduit first, he instructed. No, that one powers cabin lighting. Unless everyone wants evacuation in darkness. Sergeant Nyrith sighed dramatically. Human engineering is chaos. Aaron tightened a connection. Frontier engineering is survival. One by one, tram systems returned to life. Cheers erupted across the junction each time another platform activated. The first evacuation convoy departed moments later. Families waved through windows as the trams disappeared into transit tunnels leading away from danger. Lasara watched quietly. Hours earlier, her team had cornered this human, believing him responsible for station failures. Now thousands were escaping because he refused to stop helping. A station-wide announcement suddenly interrupted the moment. Director Harlan Voss appeared on every display. His expression was cold. All personnel are ordered to cease unauthorized evacuation procedures immediately. Security forces are instructed to detain Aaron Blake and any collaborators. Nobody moved. Miners continued loading supplies. Parents continued boarding children. Volunteers continued distributing water. Even Lasara's guards ignored the announcement completely. Aaron looked around the crowded junction. That is new, he said softly. Lasara followed his gaze. Every member of her squad stood beside civilians instead of beside authority. None remained loyal to the original mission. Not one. She deactivated the station broadcast with a single command. Continue evacuation, she ordered. The crowd resumed moving immediately. Somewhere deep below Vanta 9, contamination continued rising toward empty habitats. But above, under flickering crimson lights, human and alien worked side by side. And for the first time since the crisis began, hope moved faster than fear. The final evacuation tram departed residential Ring C with 11 minutes remaining. Inside the transit junction, silence slowly replaced the frantic motion that had filled the station for hours. Empty supply crates sat abandoned beside loading platforms. Emergency blankets lay folded across benches where frightened families had waited only moments earlier. The air still carried the metallic scent of contamination, but now the monitors showed improving conditions. Aaron Blake stood alone at the central console, studying environmental readings with tired eyes. Population count, he asked quietly. Sergeant Nyrith checked the latest manifest. 2,314 civilians relocated successfully. Aaron nodded slowly. Good. He finally allowed himself to sit. Across the junction, Commander Lasara Vane watched him carefully. The human looked exhausted beyond measure. His hands trembled slightly as he removed his gloves. Grease stained every part of his clothing. Yet he was still reviewing station diagnostics. Still working. Lasara walked toward him. The evacuation is complete, she said softly. You can rest. Aaron looked up at her. Not yet. He pointed toward the display. Contamination levels are still rising in the lower extraction shafts. If the filtration network collapses completely, the entire station loses atmospheric stability. Lasara frowned. Can it be prevented? Aaron hesitated. Maybe. He enlarged a schematic of Vanta 9. Deep beneath the station, a series of old industrial scrubbers remained visible. These units were designed for emergency purification during the original construction phase. He sighed. Corporate management deactivated them years ago to reduce operating costs. Lasara looked away briefly. The revelation no longer surprised her. Can they be restarted? Aaron nodded. Manually. He pointed toward a maintenance corridor descending into the abandoned lower levels. Someone has to reactivate the system from inside the primary processing chamber. Nyrith immediately stepped forward. Commander, allow me. Aaron shook his head. The chamber atmosphere is unstable. The systems are human-built. I know them best. Before anyone could argue, Lasara removed the portable filtration pack from her armor and placed it beside him. Then you will not go alone. 40 minutes later, human and alien stood together inside the forgotten processing chamber beneath Vanna 9. Dust covered everything. Ancient machinery towered overhead beneath dim emergency lighting. The room felt abandoned by time itself. Aaron moved from console to console, reactivating systems one by one. Lasara assisted silently, handing him tools before he asked. Somewhere above them, thousands of civilians slept safely because two former enemies refused to stop. Finally, the last system came online. Massive purification turbines awakened with a deep mechanical hum that echoed through the chamber. Across Vanta 9, environmental readings immediately began improving. Clean air flowed once more. Aaron leaned against the console, breathing heavily. That should do it, he whispered. Lasara looked at him for several seconds. When my team cornered you on Deck 12, why did you help us? Aaron seemed genuinely confused by the question. Because you needed help. Even after we came to arrest you? Aaron smiled faintly. Commander, frontier stations teach you something important. He looked toward the slowly brightening status panels. People make mistakes. Air systems do not care. Lasara said nothing. She simply stood beside the quiet human while clean air returned to Vanta 9, and for the first time in many years, she felt proud not of following orders, but of ignoring them. 6 weeks later, Vanta 9 looked alive again. Children once confined to emergency shelters raced through residential corridors carrying homemade paper comets. Mining crews returned to work under newly enforced safety protocols. Every atmospheric monitor aboard the station now displayed real-time readings visible to every resident, not just executives. Transparency had become law. Executive Director Harlan Voss no longer occupied the pristine office overlooking the station core. Following a joint investigation by imperial authorities and colonial regulators, the suppressed maintenance records had reached every major news network across frontier space. The story spread quickly. A quiet human contractor had spent 11 days trying to save a station while the people in charge attempted to silence him. Public reaction had been immediate. Reform followed. Aaron Blake cared very little about any of it. On a quiet artificial morning, he stood alone on Deck 12 replacing damaged ventilation seals. The corridor looked different now. Fresh lighting panels illuminated polished metal walls. The orange condensation was gone. Clean air flowed steadily through newly repaired ducts. Aaron tightened the final bolt and stepped down from the maintenance ladder. For the first time in many weeks, the station sounded healthy. Soft footsteps echoed behind him. Aaron turned. Commander Lasara Vane stood at the entrance to the corridor, though her armor looked different. The insignia of corporate security had been removed permanently. In its place rested a simple silver emblem representing civilian protection services. Aaron smiled faintly. You kept the assignment. Lasara nodded. All 6 of us did. She looked around the corridor. Strange place for a reunion. Aaron glanced upward toward the ventilation grill above them. Everything started here. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable now. Below them, distant laughter drifted through the station. Somewhere nearby, a maintenance cart rolled past, while music played softly from an open workshop door. Life had returned. Lasara finally broke the silence. Do you know what people are saying? Aaron looked suspicious immediately. That is rarely good. For the first time, Lasara laughed openly. The residents have given this corridor a name. Aaron sighed. I already dislike where this is going. They call it Guardian Hall. Aaron closed his eyes briefly. Absolutely not. Lasara's smile widened. The vote was unanimous. Aaron leaned against the repaired wall and looked down the length of the corridor where armed guards had once cornered him. The space stood empty now. No weapons. No confrontation. No fear. Hours after they had trapped the lone human, not one guard had remained in that hallway. Every single one had walked away from the orders that placed them there. Instead, they had chosen people. They had chosen children, families, and truth. Lasara followed his gaze. I often think about that day, she said quietly. We believed we had cornered the most dangerous person aboard Vanta 9. Aaron adjusted his tool belt. You were not entirely wrong. Lasara looked surprised. Aaron smiled softly. A human carrying a toolbox and enough stubbornness can be extremely dangerous. The commander laughed again. Together they stood beneath the quiet ventilation system, while clean air moved gently overhead. Beyond the station windows, distant stars shimmered against the darkness of space. And somewhere among those stars, 6 former guards had learned that sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is leave their post and stand beside the person they were ordered to arrest.